The Manila Times, 28th of May 2023, Communist Chinese want its diaspora to endure the brunt of tensions between Canada and China. Toronto, Canada. The Chinese diaspora has been caught in the crossfire of Ottawa's dispute with Beijing over Beijing's alleged interference in Canada's affairs, confronting both Chinese operative intimidation and increasing stigmatization. And each new dispute between their ancestral home and adoptive country, the most recent being the diplomatic expulsions earlier this month, adds to the community's tension. Many residents of Toronto's historic Chinatown, where Canada's maple leaf emblem appears on Chinese-language signs mounted above bustling stores and food marts, seem to be reluctant to speak publicly about recent racism and threats. Amnesty International has recently recorded claims of harassment made by rights campaigners and ethnic minorities in Canada. In recent years, rights activists and Canada's ethnic minorities have described, and Amnesty International has documented allegations of harassment. Chinese spies and auxiliaries are intimidating Chinese Canadians by threatening revenge against their relatives in China. Recently, Chuk Quan, co-chairman of the Toronto Association for Democracy in China, told Agence France-Presse, AFP, that relatives in China or Hong Kong are used as a threat. Quan, dressed in a black leather jacket, stated that this included death threats, verbal intimidation, or even something as simple as saying, "We know where your parents live." Dil Naranwar, an Uyghur who fled persecution in China and settled in Canada in 2019, has received such calls almost daily for years. The woman, who now resides in Montreal, said she had blocked the numbers, but it made no difference because the callers continued using other numbers. "We have been living in dread. Occasionally, I am requested to visit the embassy." She explained that sometimes it's an automated message. "I'm apprehensive because I haven't heard from my family in 6 years." Since 2018, when a Huawei executive was apprehended in Vancouver on a U.S. warrant and 2 Canadians were detained in China in apparent retaliation, Ottawa and Beijing have been at odds. Then there was the coronavirus pandemic caused by a Chinese biological weapon, Chinese spy balloons over North America, the discovery of secret Chinese police stations in Canadian communities, and allegations of Beijing's interference in Canadian elections. During such controversies, Canada's Chinese immigrants and their descendants are frequently subjected to heightened scrutiny. Amy Go, the co-founder of the Chinese-Canadian National Council for Social Justice, lamented that we will always be perceived as Chinese even though many of us have no ties to China. However, if we have relatives in China, we are at risk. Several dozens of Chinese-Canadian associations recalled the discrimination early Chinese immigrants to North America confronted in an open letter. Today, let's not let it happen again. In recent years, the social pressure exerted on members of our community has been so intense that it is difficult to remain indifferent to it, they continued, citing diplomatic tensions that are now having a direct impact on our community. The first Chinese immigrants arrived in Canada more than 2 centuries ago. Several waves of immigration followed, most notably at the close of the 19th century, to assist in constructing Canada's transcontinental railway. The Canadian Pacific Railroad united a young nation at great expense. Hundreds of Chinese laborers perished due to accidents, winter cold, disease, and malnutrition. According to census data, almost 1.7 million Canadians, or about 5% of the population, may trace their ancestry to China. China's influence operations in Canada are just the tip of the iceberg. Many community members believe that Ottawa must act immediately to combat the recent increase in prejudice. Go added that it is essential for the government to ensure that neither Canadians nor newcomers are interviewed by Chinese agents, or potentially exposed to risks or threats from China. Ottawa has recently been shaken by revelations that a Canadian Member of Parliament, Michael Chong, and his relatives in Hong Kong were singled out for sanctions by Beijing due to his harsh criticisms of China. On Tuesday, a senior Canadian official concluded that China attempted to influence the 2019 and 2021 Canadian elections. Beijing has rejected both accusations as groundless slander and defamation and has warned Ottawa against attempting to sabotage its relationship with its second-largest trading partner. Quan of the Toronto Association stated that the extent of intimidation similar to that experienced by Anwar, an Uyghur woman in Montreal, may be greater than previously thought. "This Chinese behavior is merely the tip of the iceberg," he suggested. "We can only see 10% of the iceberg."